Hello, everybody. Sean should be here shortly.
I do not know what's wrong with my camera.
Looks okay.
Really? On my end, it looks like my face is gigantic and I'm off to the side.
Oh, you looked centered on mine from my angle.
All right.
All right, we're already live on YouTube.
Cool.
Any business you need to take care of before we get in the episode?
No, nothing really.
All right, cool. I still haven't I mean, I don't know what's going on. AT&T seems to have slowed down my connection.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, every movie I can't get through without it, loading at one point. HBO is unbearable. I mean, it's like every 30 seconds. I have to pause it and let it buffer.
Oh, crap.
So I might have to have you explain a little bit of those who wish me dead when we get there. This is going good, so hopefully this isn't a problem. But I don't know. I called AT&T and they just kind of said tough, and I don't have another option. I mean, there's Mediacom doesn't come here, nobody else comes, so I'm working on seeing what I can do, but I don't really know what I can do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's encouraging though that this is working now, so that's good. But hopefully we don't have to keep making you go solo. Unless you prefer that. I don't know.
Not nearly as much fun.
All right. Okay. But anyway, you won't be able to hear the intro, but I'll play it right now and then we'll get started.
All right.
Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast, episode 484. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, everyone's a critic podcast.com. Our social media handle at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is Critics Pod. We're on YouTube. You can also listen to us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. Subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. We do go live on Monday nights, generally at about 8 Central Time, 8:30, depending on how much I have my shit together. That's been the norm lately if we are recording.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch, that's a good time to check us out on YouTube.
Because Bob had to have kids.
Yeah. And the job too. I mean, it's everything is compiling on itself. I don't know if that just happens at 40 generally or what. But.
It does. It comes with they issue that at 40. They just don't tell you.
Yeah, no, it's just been life has been taking away from movies. But I did get back to the theater this week, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. Before we get there, though, I want to mention our Patreon page at patreon.com/criticspod. The best way to help support the podcast. Thank you to all of our subscribers. We also have our TeePublic page at ihatecritics.net. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a TeePublic link. Click on that. You can buy some of our merch, or go to TeePublic and search Critics Pod, or Willem Dafoe, or Cameron Diaz, or Everyone's a Critic. We're all over the place there.
We need to make a happy birthday Josh t-shirt.
Yeah, so it's Josh's birthday. Forgot about that one. Apparently he just gets an R2D2 cake every year, from what I've noticed on Facebook. Is that the right one? Or is it the other row?
Does that make you hate cake?
Doesn't help. I mean, despite my appearance, I'm not a huge cake guy. But that definitely doesn't make me go there.
Yeah. Plus, you need the vegan frosting. It's a whole thing.
No, now it's impossible. You got to get the eggs right. You can't have eggs in it. It's a whole ordeal. And then the ice cream, you got to get dairy free. It's not fun for anybody unless you're vegan. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the show. Let's find my share screen and grab this and share and full screen. Sean and I both made it back to the theater for the first time in over a year.
Yeah, it's been over a year.
And we saw Spiral from the Book of Saw.
Spiral from the Book of Saw is a continuation of sorts of the Saw franchise with Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson, among others, and directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, who's a longtime Saw director, directed a couple of the Saw sequels. And the story goes that basically this time it's a copycat killer who is using Jigsaw's playbook to enact a series of murders of police officers, and he's doing so as a way of correcting the behavior of corrupt cops. Chris Rock is a non-corrupt cop who kind of gets caught up in the center of this as the subject of this because the Jigsaw killer, wants to kill the people around him, and he's trying to keep them alive, essentially. But as a younger cop, he turned in a dirty cop who murdered a witness to cover up a police involved killing. And ever since then, he's been considered a rat. But it also means that this person who is taking up the Jigsaw mantle kind of sees him as a potential ally, I guess. So somebody he can take under his wing and teach the ways of Jigsaw, perhaps, if we can get him to go that way. This isn't a Saw movie to me. This is something slightly different because really they set out to do something similar to Saw. Like, this movie gets a lot of credit for being about police corruption and being a horror movie with some ideas about police corruption, but really in the end, it's not really about that. The moral lessons that are being taught here are very on the nose and not. It lacks the philosophical edge that at least I feel I've seen in the first 7 Saw movies. Outside of this one and Jigsaw, I think there was legitimately something there to that the movies were trying to say, and they had some intention behind them and a genuine philosophy about trying to make people value their life, but also, wanting to punish those who are pissing in the water supply. Those people who take it upon themselves to make it about themselves as opposed to working together as a collective. I've always loved and appreciated that about the Saw movies. And everybody else pretty much writes it off, but I've got a series of reviews that are going up at horror.media of all of the original Saw movies, and including this one and Jigsaw. And it just reaffirms that for me, this first 7 movies really did have a through line that was quite serious, but also a definite philosophy behind them. This one is more of a police procedural that tacks on the ideas and maybe the kind of the milieu of Jigsaw, but doesn't really get to the heart of it. I think much of this movie is a lot of Chris Rock as a cop, detective sort of chasing his tail until Jigsaw kind of the Jigsaw copycat randomly reveals itself at the end and tries to tie it all together. And I miss the way that the Saw movies used to tie themselves together at the end, that rising chorus, this wave upon wave of revelation that set to this incredible, Saw soundtrack. And as the various levels of Jigsaw's insane plan suddenly turn into something that is concrete and meaningful, that always got me at the end. I always loved that at the end of the Saw movies. And this one tries that and fails at it pretty miserably, which is kind of surprising considering that, again, Darren Lynn Bousman did this really well a couple of times. I don't think this is a bad movie. I think Chris Rock is really good. I think he does a great job of balancing his comic persona with this more bitter, angry cop persona. And Samuel L. Jackson is just so relaxed and such a great movie star that even if he is kind of on autopilot, he's still Samuel L. Jackson. He still can hold the center. He holds your attention. He holds the screen. And so there are good things about Spiral, but in the end, it's not quite good enough for me as a Saw movie.
Yeah, it's almost you need to see it twice, but it's not necessarily good enough to see twice. Because the first time you can't not think of the Saw movies. And that's all you're comparing it to, just human nature. And I feel like the next time I'll like it a little better as a standalone movie. I like the Saw movies not as much as you. I kind of check out after the third one. I think they get a little sloppy after that, or repetitive maybe. But the first 3 I think are just fantastic. And this is just a good movie, goodish, kind of predictable. At first the acting bugged me, but then I was like, it's a horror movie. They're going for over the top. I gotta just accept that. And once I did, I started to enjoy that. I like the idea of, it's they keep calling it the woke Saw movie, which is, but they like you said, they don't. I don't know. It really isn't. I mean, it is to an extent, but it's not all about that. And I think that might be what also kind of prevented it from being a Saw movie, because it seemed like Chris Rock was aware that it was too woke, so he wanted to take a step back, and therefore it didn't tie together the way the other Saw movies do. In a way, and on top of that, like you said, the main character is Chris Rock, and it follows him. It's a police procedure, so it really is a different tone altogether. On top of the fact that you have, Sam Jackson and Chris Rock are more famous than anybody in any of these other Saw movies. So right away you have that distraction. But it's watchable. I don't know if it's because of the first time back in the theater. I had a good time watching it. I'd say it's a solid movie. It's in the Saw world, but it's not a Saw movie.
Right. The connections to Jigsaw are very limited, I would say, and they don't really hold together, because you've got this copycat killer who takes up the mantle of Jigsaw and starts using his style of traps and whatnot, but they don't really establish enough of an emotional or intellectual connection between that killer, especially after the killer is revealed, to to make that make sense. Like, why was this guy or this guy? I guess giving it away a little bit, but why was this person drawn to the Jigsaw murders? I get that what happens in this movie, and you have to infer a lot on this as well. The cops
right
received this directive after, in the wake of the Jigsaw killings and the copycats that followed after Jigsaw's death, to crack down on crime in a way that was criminal. Essentially, they were going above and beyond the bounds of the law to do this, and it led to a man being killed who should not have been killed. It was just an innocent guy trying to do the right thing. And seeing that the person who becomes the killer, sets about enacting a Jigsaw plan. But I just don't buy that killer would have that inspiration. I just don't, because it's not well established enough. It's too loose. And that's unfortunate for the film. This is the woke Saw movie. It's like nobody has seen the other Saw movies.
They're more
Saw
woke
6.
than this.
Saw 6 is literally about taking down corrupt insurance companies. Like, it's all, that's what the movie is about. And nobody pays any attention to Saw 6. Saw 6 is really great. It's a fascinating film, and it's about insurance companies. People think it's about the traps and about the blood and gore. It is, but it's also about, universal health care. It's about taking the decisions about life and death away from, algorithms on an insurance computer. Like, I think if people would pay attention, you'd realize Saw has been pretty woke for a while.
Oh yeah.
It's just this time they happen to be taking on or kind of taking on police corruption in a very vague and mishandled way.
I will say Saw 6, 4 through 7, 6 is my favorite. And I think it needs to be like, it's not like Jigsaw picked this guy out. This guy he's a copycat. So really he has no connection whatsoever. And so to say he's taken over the mantle is not even really fair, because Jigsaw has no connection to him. And then if you look at the killings, he doesn't really give you a chance to survive.
Yeah.
And either that or it's just really sloppy filmmaking. But I'm going to go with the fact that no matter what, there just really was a lot of the people decided to make the move fairly early on and were never able to make them, do the horrible thing to get themselves to survive.
Right.
None of them are able to survive. So, he's definitely not, I mean, you really got to separate the two and just accept it as a copycat and nothing else.
There's a certain form of optimistic nihilism in what Jigsaw did, in letting people have the opportunity to survive his traps. He doesn't want to kill these people. He wants them to realize the value of their own life and do something to earn the right to continue to live. And as fucked up as that is, it's like in professional wrestling when the bad guy has a point. A good bad guy in professional wrestling has a point to why he's breaking the rules. And Jigsaw has a point to why he's breaking the rules of society and killing people. I don't agree with killing people or putting them in traps, but I understand the philosophical foundation of what he's going for. And that sort of nihilistic optimism is what makes this series so exciting to me, is that it has a very particular philosophy. And to in attempting to continue this in the way it does, it divorces itself from that.
Oh, completely. Yeah, no, I agree completely. And it's a matter, but at the same time, they don't establish enough, because here we are, debating is not the right word, but discussing what could possibly be, does he want him to die? Is it just sloppy filmmaking? It's one of the two, maybe both.
Mm-hmm.
But they definitely don't establish, him. You try to make him more of a surprise, which, really there's two possible people, and they're pretty easy to figure out who they would be.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do find out, it's not like blow you away. Oh my God, it's him. But I don't know. It's like I say, if I can watch it without thinking about Saw, without trying to connect anything to it, because there really is no connection other than that Jigsaw existed in this world. That's the only connection this movie has. But it's nothing else is really established otherwise, and it looks like they're going to try to sequelize it based on the ending. So
That was very successful. So there's a good idea here, like setting cop stories in the universe of where Jigsaw was and still has an influence and impact. Like that's an interesting idea. And the last of the Jigsaw movies, the original 7, I think, did leave the door open for numerous Jigsaw acolytes, like a cult, that would allow for something like this to continue. But this isn't connected to that in any way.
No, not at all. I think they could still, if they do sequelize it and they spend the time identifying this character and, his motivations, but, I guess you could make it a really scary movie, I suppose. I don't know. To me, it's not dead in the water. You could make this a decent series. I don't think you could make it as good as Saw, but I think you could make a solid, watchable franchise out of this. But
if anything, at the very least, Chris Rock proves that he can do stuff like this and be very good at it, and that's certainly something. Because, like I said, I bought in on him and his performance and his motivations, and the decisions that he made seem to make sense. He doesn't act illogically or just plain stupid throughout the movie. He's a good cop who's doing his job, and the times he gets beat, the times he gets fooled, it makes sense why it happened.
And even his relationship right away with the first guy who was killed, right out of the gate, I'm like, really? He's friends with that guy? But then they come back around and explain it. To me, that's a little bit cheap, but they do, so I got to give it to them. At least they did do that. But it's watchable, and I definitely think people who like either police procedurals or horror movies will enjoy this movie. It is a little bit.
It's a horror movie, Law and Order.
Yeah, you got to be ready but you got to be able to handle the gore. It's kind of like the Dark Side of the Ring fans had to watch last week's episode. It's a little different. It is gory. So let's go ahead and move on to Those Who Wish Me Dead.
Those Who Wish Me Dead, from director Taylor Sheridan, who's known for his work on the screenplay for Hell or High Water and for directing the terrific movie Wind River with Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen. This time he's working on a kind of an old school 90s style action movie in which Angelina Jolie plays a firefighter, a fire jumper, who has kind of a PTSD situation going on. So they've put her in a fire tower. Her job is just basically to look for fire in the forest. She gets drawn into the plot with this boy played by Finn Little, whose father has uncovered some sort of nefarious information that the government wants to get their hands on, and they're looking to kill anybody who gets in their way. With bad guys Aidan Gillen and Nicholas Hoult basically killing anybody who see their face in order to try and get to this kid. The kid ends up finding Angelina Jolie. She takes him in and keeps him as safe as she can, but they've started a wildfire. And so her PTSD plus a wildfire that is raging out of control towards her location, and these two killers on her trail. There's a lot of excitement in this movie. I genuinely did get enthralled by the action of this. It was curious to me the amount of time that Angelina Jolie is off screen, like the way that they're treating this as an ensemble. And I'm sorry, but Angelina Jolie is too big a star for an ensemble. I know she just stands out too much. She's so interesting and so good at what she does that when Aidan Gillen is trying to hold the screen, you're going, where's Angelina Jolie? Where is she? Is she around? Is she in the scene too? Is she in the background somewhere? Because Aidan Gillen, for as talented as he is, and Nicholas Hoult and even John Bernthal, the same, like as interesting as they all are, they're not Angelina Jolie, and I want to know what she's doing. I want to be in her story, and we're in their story for a large portion of the first and second act, and like I said, a lot of the time I was just going, where's Angelina? Is she there? Where is she? she's more interesting than the rest of the movie. That's I guess a blessing and a curse in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the movie itself, the way it works as an ensemble, it's just the fact that she's such a big star. I don't think that anybody did anything wrong. It's just you can't, if A Few Good Men only had Jack Nicholson and then a bunch of character actors, or only Tom Cruise, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it does work. It's that curse of having a super A-list star. I mean, Angelina Jolie's just a handful of people that are that big.
Right.
And that said, it doesn't hurt that she's a complete badass in this movie. Where I had problems was just like I was mentioning at the beginning of the podcast, my cable was cutting out, or maybe this is the YouTube, maybe the podcasters haven't heard this. I'm having internet problems at home. I live in the middle of nowhere, but not quite far enough in the middle of nowhere where I have a co-op that can get me internet. So this, for like the first hour, was pausing like every 30 seconds or every 2 minutes. It was just a constant.
Unwatchable.
So I don't know why they were after the dad and the kid. And you kind of just said it was something broad. Do they not really go into it?
They don't really. It's a MacGuffin from really the beginning of the end. It's really just a reason to get them moving. They never reveal what the secret is, but Dad is a forensic accountant who has uncovered a piece of information, and when he sees that the attorney general or state's attorney or whoever it was has his house blown up, he knows that the killers are coming for him. So him and his son go on the run, and the killers figure out through some luck and context clues which way he's going, and they beat him to it and they kill him. The boy gets away and ends up with Angelina Jolie in her tower, and that's where the story goes from there. John Bernthal happens to be the boy's uncle, so they were going to Bernthal's place when the dad got killed, and Bernthal and his wife, played by Medina Senghor, get captured, and they go, they're off trying. The bad guys are forcing them, try to help them find the kid, and that's your plot. And it's not bad. It's not a bad plot. It's a very watchable movie. It's got some really terrific action in it. Angelina Jolie is fucking great in this movie. She's a fucking movie star. She can do just about anything. So I have no problem whatsoever really with her, and really not much of a problem with the movie, aside from, again, she's just such a big star and she's so interesting that she overshadows everything else in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think she wants to be as big a star as she is. There's only you're like Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt. There's very few people that are at that level at this point. And she's kind of been away for a while. And, she can't escape it. It's just going to follow her around.
And maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just obsessed with Angelina Jolie. I don't know. I was feeling it though. I was just feeling it though. Like everybody else in the movie wasn't nearly as interesting as her.
Well, if Mission Impossible wasn't chasing Tom Cruise around the whole time, and there was a good 40-50% of that movie where he's not on screen, it's not going to work. And it's the same thing here. But the difference is it is shot properly. It's just, I don't know. I shouldn't say this doesn't work, because it does work. It's just, she's huge.
This isn't exactly a Poochie situation. Like, she didn't require them to, when she's off screen, you need to talk about it. You need to talk about me and make sure everybody knows where I am.
Right.
She didn't do this intentionally. She's fucking great. Like you said, she's great in this movie. And I love the little character touches. She does these just little bits where she just reveals herself, whether she's giving the kid, she gives the kid a little dating advice just for, because she's trying to keep him calm and get him through this situation. But that's a funny moment. And it also comes after she's just hit her head. So it's like, the kid plays off that really well. And, you see her fall from the tower and she's got to get herself back up. And I mean, she comes off like a fucking badass. And
she gets her ass kicked in this movie. Punched hard over and over again. And she carries it like a Stallone character would, or whatever. It's worth watching. I definitely recommend it. Just not at my house. Go watch it at your house with a better connection. Right. It's in theaters too, I believe.
And I want to give a shout out to Medina Singor. Her character also. She's a survivalist. She's Don Berthol's wife, and I thought when I saw that, it's like, oh fuck, it's a without remorse moment coming right here. Taylor Sheridan wrote that script, by the way.
Oh wow.
And I was like, oh no, I can see what's happening here. These two are dead meat, and they turned that a little bit and gave her a couple of really great moments that were solid enough that I only kind of wondered where Angelina Jolie was during those scenes.
Well, and they're, I mean, and when they find John Bernthal, they don't shoot him like they do everybody else, but they do a good enough job of making you understand why, and that to me that's important. A lesser movie without remorse wouldn't do that.
No.
So but it's there if you want to see it on HBO Max or in theaters
through June, and then it'll be gone. It'll disappear only in theaters at that point.
The Woman in the Window.
Yes, this movie's been around for a while now. This is Amy Adams starring as a psychologist who's dealing with trauma that is caused in her agoraphobia, which causes her to be afraid to leave her home. She's visited on a regular basis by her therapist, played by Tracy Letts, who also adapted the screenplays from a very popular book. And she's estranged from her husband, played by Anthony Mackie, and her daughter as well. And she's just living alone in this house, drinking wine and taking pills and kind of generally zoning out on a regular basis. Her main connection to the world is spying on her neighbors, a la Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window. And she kind of builds their lives in her head, and she gets new neighbors, played by Gary Oldman as one of them, and then a young boy and a mom, or at least someone she thinks is the mom. Now that's a bit of a twist. But Julianne Moore pops up in this movie, and as these new neighbors are settling in, they all take the opportunity to come see the woman across the street who's spying on them. And she has interactions with each of them. She then sees that there may be some abuse happening from the father to the kid, and she's concerned. But also, is she actually seeing anything that she's actually seeing, because she's, drunk and popping pills every day? And there are many other secrets. What is it with Hollywood just making Amy Adams look like garbage? Like, I know that this character isn't supposed to be somebody who's taking good care of themselves, but honestly, these house dresses they've got her in, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but about her attractiveness, she's still very attractive, but I'm saying that this is just not a fun, enjoyable look for anybody. And I can't imagine anybody finding this interesting to watch this character. It's just something about her. Like, they did this to her, they let her down this way in Hillbilly Elegy as well, where they think that just basically dressing her down will maybe dim her talent somehow. Like, to make her more relatable to the other actors. I don't know, because she's so much better than everybody else. Maybe you do have to dress her down a little bit so she doesn't outshine the rest of the cast. She's let down. I
mean, you got Gary Oldman and Julianne Moore. I mean, they're
barely there.
Level. Oh.
They're barely in the movie, though. They're barely there.
Never mind then.
They're certainly at her level, but they're barely in the movie. Jennifer Jason Leigh's also in the movie, along with Brian Tyree Henry, but it's mostly just Amy Adams on her own, and she does really well with this. Directed by Joe Wright, who's a solid director. He did Atonement and Hannah, so he knows how to direct. But there's a lot of cheats in this movie and a lot of really pulpy stuff that really builds toward a twist that is kind of icky in many ways, and a pretty big cheat in many ways as well. They really abuse the unreliable narrator in this one to a degree that really stretches it to a point that it can't hold it. And that's unfortunate. There are good things about this movie. It's another one of those really watchable movies, but just in the end, I found the whole process of getting where they got to be unseemly and not satisfying, and then in the end, I just didn't care what happened.
I didn't watch it largely because I read bad reviews about it, and I'm glad because the movies I watched I liked quite a bit. I mean, I might check it out eventually. It is on Netflix, and I love Amy Adams, man. I think she's one of the best out there right now. That said, she hasn't had that great performance in a while, but COVID.
Yeah.
So I don't. Uh, but I was excited, the most excited about this until we got into the week and I started watching things. But we'll see.
I think Amy Adams needs to get away from Netflix. It's bad news. Two in a row. They're bad
Well,
news.
I don't know that she intentionally went to Netflix on this one.
True, true.
The Jinn.
The Djinn, this is a terrific horror movie. This is a movie in which the directors set themselves this impossible challenge. They have one set, this tiny apartment, and their main character is a little boy who can't speak, who is on screen the entire time, almost by himself, creating every little piece of horror that happens in this movie. And that is a terrific challenge that they set for themselves, and that they pull that challenge off in a really special and interesting way is a testament both to the directing duo of David Charbonnier and Justin Powell, and this young actor whose name is escaping me at the moment, but he's terrific. He can't speak, like he's a mute character. He cannot talk, and he's got to carry this entire movie by himself. And I could go after this as being just a child in danger plot, but I think that they put enough twists and turns on that to keep this from being unseemly. The really, it's really just a smartly directed movie. They make really great use of this one location that they have, and this one other actor that they have, or two other actors, I guess, that they have in this movie. One is a guy named Rob Brownstein who plays his dad, who's really, really good. He's this older guy who you assume he's a grandpa, but he's not. And there's like a richness to that idea of how a man of this guy's age and stature and his job as a overnight radio DJ where he can't be making any money. That idea of him and this tiny apartment, they communicate so much history just in the casting and his just little touches in his performance. I also like what they did with the mom. She essentially becomes kind of the big bad in a way, but she's not actually there, as a lot of this centers on what happened to her and the boy dealing with guilt related to what happened to her, and how that manifests itself in this thing that he's done where he's made a wish upon this book that he found in their new apartment to call forth the jinn, or a genie in American language. Genie was what we call it, but it's the jinn in ancient terms. And he's made a wish to try and get his ability to speak, to regain the ability of speech. And he's got to survive the night to earn this and try and follow the rules of what the book says. And the movie sets out pretty good barriers for what the ghost can do and can't do, and I really appreciated that, because so many of these movies use that as a cheat. The bad guy or the protagonist will have abilities that only come about because the script needed it to move the plot forward, and they don't do that here. They establish what this entity, this demon, this jinn can do, and they don't allow it to do anything else. And that I found cool. It's also got a number of really cool visuals. The visual at the end is a striking one, and I really dug that. So I really like this movie.
This is a fantastic horror film. The use of the camera. I mean, the way they create suspense just by these long ass shots using that one set is just so unnerving. You can't keep your eyes off the screen, yet you don't want to look. None of it's cheap. Even when they explain kind of how the jinn works, something starts happening before they get into the explanation. You kind of figure it out there, and they clarify it and they confirm it by explaining it later on. Everything about it was just really well done, really neat, really unique. Very, very scary, which a lot of horror movies anymore, if you've seen a movie, it's hard to be scary anymore. And this did a great job of being scary. And then, it doesn't pull any punches. It keeps, at no point can you relax.
And it doesn't rely on simple jump scares either. There are jump scares in this movie, but they're legit.
Earned. They are earned.
Yeah. I really loved that. And this movie reminded me a lot of The Vigil, which is another really great horror movie about one guy in one location for an entire night, and similar premise in this, similarly well carried out.
Yeah, but I can't recommend it enough. You can rent it right now, I think, on any of your streaming platforms.
And I'll post a link. I've got in my other job on radio. I did a interview with the directors, David Charbonnier and Justin Powell, and talked to them about the challenge that they set for themselves in making this movie, and how amazingly cleverly they pulled it off.
So, just kind of a hint, just a question. A lot of those long shots, were those legit long shots, or were they kind of pretend long shots, or did you get into that part of it, or is that they got to wait and listen to your
I didn't really. I kind of touched on. We talked about the apartment location a lot, but I didn't really get into the shooting aspect. I was kind of more fascinated by the challenge that they set for themselves. But you're right about the shots. They're incredible.
And they, because of them, and it's all of it relies on every aspect of the movie, from the kid to the location of the shot. Everything has to work or this movie falls apart.
Yeah,
and it all does.
And they nailed the emotional element too. The way they invest you emotionally in the kid. Not so much that you think like, oh, they're gonna kill a child, but in that you understand the emotional underpinnings of why all of this is happening around this kid.
Well, yeah, and just to kind of go back on something Sean said, the kid made the wish. He's got to survive it within an hour.
Yeah,
they're actively trying to kill him. So it's intense.
Yeah. And it's a legit hour. I mean, it takes the rest of the movie, because it almost feels like in real time almost.
15 minutes in of when they start killing him, like, he's got to get close, right? I look down, it's only 15 minutes. And I'm like, and they go, like you said, it's pretty much in real time.
Yeah.
I can't recommend it enough. If you're a horror fan specifically, check it out.
I don't understand a lot of the reviews of this just dismissing this immediately as just another horror movie. You've got to take into account what the challenge that they set for themselves with this location and this character. And they're telling this story mostly through context clues. That is a really, really great challenge. And it takes a lot of film language to make a movie like this work and work as smoothly as it does. You like you were talking about before, you learn a lot of this story just from the visual elements of what you're being taught.
Yeah, and it's not like your typical horror movie where just ghosts are doing things for no reason.
Yeah.
You know the reasons. And I didn't know it was getting mediocre reviews.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
And this is one of the better ones I've seen in a long time. Definitely check it out. Scavenger is something I stepped in and then scraped off my shoe and then decided to watch as a movie. This is an utterly garbage film that I think was initially made in Mexico and then redubbed in English badly, noticeably, like in an Ed Wood level of dubbing, like that level of bad. I'm going to go ahead and spoil the whole damn thing because this is a piece of garbage and it really doesn't have much of a story to spoil anyway. But this is one of the worst movies ever made. And that's not an advertisement for the movie. This is one that is legitimately just unwatchably terrible. The idea here is that in this post-apocalyptic future, a woman acts as a scavenger who she kills bad guys. She cuts up their flesh and delivers the flesh to a butcher who then serves it to people who are cannibals. She finds out that the person who murdered her family and kidnapped her sister when she was a kid, she finds out that guy owns a brothel somewhere nearby and that she has the opportunity to gain revenge. She goes to the brothel, she gets dosed, she gets raped for the entirety of the second act by first her sister, and then a guy pees on her face, and then she's raped by the bad guy before she was finally able to escape and then murder the bad guy.
She didn't know it was her sister when they started to make out, and I knew. I knew, not because the movie told me, not because the movie was seeding that in. It was just so obvious from the economy of characters in the story that obviously had to be what it was. This wasn't an old boy thing where they pulled the rug out from under you, because these filmmakers had no intention of actually telling a story, or really a capability of telling an actual legitimate story. This is a movie that is just about degradation and shock, and just being hateful to audiences, to anybody who takes a moment to look at this. I'm not trying to be Roger Ebert talking about I spit on your grave here. I mean, just that there's just nothing redeeming about this. The look of the film is bad. The everything, the production design is terrible. The costumes are like Mad Max cosplays from Comic-Con, slapped together from shit they had laying around. There's just nothing remotely appealing or positive or interesting about this garbage movie, and I don't. They made this basically to shock people. They made this to just to put up a middle finger to people, and I'm not sure. I just don't understand what point there is. This is like, I don't know. It's like what is it like? It's like just racists who are openly racist to you, and you just look at them in shock, and it's like, how do you get through life at a daily basis just by just being openly hateful to people? And that's this movie in a nutshell. It's just being openly hateful towards people, and it's ugly, it's nasty, it's poorly made, and you can't watch this movie even ironically to find something to enjoy about it.
Well, yeah, it's even if Roger Ebert couldn't make this movie something where we talk about it in 20 years,
right?
When he basically got people to go watch I Stood in Your Grave, and then there was a little bit a discussion was able to be had about that movie.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds me, I didn't watch it, but based on what you're saying, and it's going to be even worse than what it reminds me of. But like when we watch E.T. the Killer, and then like Eli Roth's a big fan of that, and he goes off and makes Hostel, and it's kind of garbage. This is like that to the next level. It's clearly they're inspired by stuff that has more substance, but it's also shocking, and they just take all the substance out and just leave all the peeing in the face, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to discuss. And at that point, it's just like, I don't care. Like, if you got the cool kills or the cool imagery or whatever, that's one thing, but you need something to back it up.
This doesn't even have that. I mean, this is low rent mystery science theater shit. Like, this is that's the level of we're dealing with here. If Eli, I hate Eli Roth's work, but I've never called him talentless.
Right.
But this would be if Eli Roth had no talent, he would make Scavenger.
Absolutely. Who's the one that made that Last House on the Left remake with, not the actual remake, but it was called something else, Chaos or something like that.
I don't remember.
Sylvester Stallone's kid. That is one of the worst movies ever. Have you seen it? It sounds like you have, based on the way you're reacting.
I don't. No, I don't think. I'm not sure if I've seen it or not. I don't remember.
All right, it's up there as well.
Next Patreon bonus episode. I'm kidding.
No, we're not doing that one. But then there's this one, The Killing of Two Lovers.
Yes, The Killing of Two Lovers. This movie is amazing. This is my favorite movie of 2021 so far. This is directed by a guy named Robert Machoyan and stars Clayton Crawford as the husband in a marriage that is falling apart. He and his wife have separated. He's living down the street from her in this small town with his dad, and longing to be back home where he's got 4 kids at home and his wife that he still loves. But the thing about it is that there isn't anything that anyone did. She didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. This is just the inertia of 2 people who fell into a routine and never found a way out of it. And it kind of became soul crushing. And when there's nobody to blame, the level of frustration rises to such a degree that it becomes unbearable. And that's the entirety of this movie and the entirety of what's happening in Clayne Crawford's head throughout this movie. He can't be mad at her. She didn't do anything, but he didn't do anything either. So how is he supposed to feel in this situation where his wife is beginning to move on without him? She's started to see somebody, and he he wants to be angry about this, but at the same time, he also agreed to that they were both going to try and, other things and maybe try and find a way to move on that way. Even if he didn't mean it, it's still something that he agreed to and said, and he can't take it back now. You also got his daughter who blames him for this whole situation. You've got 3 little boys who don't really understand this situation other than dad's acting a little weird. All of this is communicated in these brilliant, deep focus, long lens shots where Clayne Crawford is made to look so small and so insignificant against this, this very harsh winter fall background that isn't it's not snow covered, but it's this kind of barren cold that you can feel in your bones when you look at it. And it's like being inside his, his heart, his mind, his feelings, this barren, cold emptiness that he feels for the love of his life. Then you have just this incredible scene where he ends up in a confrontation with the new boyfriend, and this scene is the best scene of, I don't know, the last few years for me. I was just so amazed. The energy, the tension, the blood boiling. I mean, you if you've ever been in this situation, you feel this on such a level. I've been in this situation. I had an ex of mine wanted me to try and remain friends, and she wanted me to remain friends while she was moving on and getting married to this other guy, and he tried to give me a gift. And it was as if, to me, in my mind, like he was trying to give me something in exchange for giving her up. And it was so awkward and so painful. And I was so mad. And I was saying to him, walk away, walk away, walk away. And that's what Clayne Crawford's doing in this amazing scene. He's not looking at the guy. He's just like, just fucking walk away, man. Just walk away right now. And he doesn't, and the scene goes where it goes. This movie is incredible. The opening scene of this movie had me on the edge of my seat. It's just 2 people lying in bed sleeping. On the soundtrack, you hear this atonal sort of music that sounds like pipes rattling in an old house. And this is the soundtrack that's playing in Clayne Crawford's head. You're just in this quick shot to this wide expanding shot that is just Clayne Crawford against an empty background holding a gun over the head of these 2 people. And it is such an amazing, thrilling, exciting moment just from a visual perspective. It's so good and so effective. And it sets this tense tone that does not let up throughout the entirety of this movie. I could go on about this for days. I love this movie.
I haven't had a chance to talk about it with anybody. I had to watch it on my phone, as opposed. But I didn't. I mean, I caught everything you said. This is a phenomenal movie. I can't wait to watch it again. I have so many questions. I mean, that opening scene you talked about, it sets the tone, but then they never go back there, and you almost feel as frustrated as he is.
Yeah.
And you were like, was that the end of the movie? Was that the beginning of the movie? Was it real? I mean, he clearly has a gun. I mean, I don't know the answer to any of that. The last scene, I'm assuming, was before all the movie took place, but I suppose you could argue it was after. I suppose it depends on what the audience wants. I don't really know. The scene you talked about, I actually had to watch twice. So what just happened? Because that was, you're right. That probably was one of the, I mean, I don't know what you call the best, but I mean, it doesn't get better than that. So, yeah. It's up there with all the other great scenes of all time. Just a phenomenal scene, and where it goes, it's just like, oh my god. Uh, I don't. It's a hell of a movie, and it comes from the guy who was like, not doesn't come from the main actor was basically called hard to work with because of Lethal Weapon. Turns out it wasn't even him; it was Damon Wayans. But uh, that alone shocked me for some stupid TV show I never watched.
Yeah.
To find out that this guy was the guy. Now he was definitely carried by the director and the writing, but he held his own.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean,
It's
are
just
there
so damn
answers?
good.
Are there answers to my questions, or is it meant to be like that, in your opinion,
uh
without giving anything away?
like there's some. Yeah, I mean, I think it's much more. I think the ending is rather concrete and bold, considering what your expectations are, what the what the expectations of the movie sets up for you. It's a bold way to go, and I think it is a concrete ending as it's intended to be, and I really loved that. And I just everything about this movie works for me. This every scene, every shot is so perfectly composed. I'm there's one where he and his kids are playing in the park. You've got
Oh
him
yeah,
and his kids are playing with this rocket, and they're in one corner of the screen, and then his daughter is kind of more to the center, but then there's all this space left over on the side, and it's as if that space on the side is waiting for something to occupy it, and it's going to be whatever happens between him and his daughter is going to occupy that empty portion of the screen, and that emptiness getting the emptiness just reflects, like, look at what we're looking at the poster. I mean, you can see that all the things on top of him, all that space on top of him is meant to make him look small, and it reflects how he feels. This toxic sort of male ego that is also coming from somebody who feels like he's a perfectly reasonable guy, and in many ways he is a perfectly reasonable guy. He's not a bad person, but he's feeling a lot of very desperate, frustrated, impotent emotions, and Robert Machoyan captures that in every frame that he puts Clayne Crawford in. He figures out a way to exacerbate that feeling.
right before we get to flick chart, let's go into ending a little bit because I want to know more of what I saw versus what actually happened, because of my environment. Because I'm definitely intrigued, but I don't want to spoil it for the listeners either because it's a must see,
Yeah.
especially if you're the type of person to listen to our podcast. All right, let's move on to our classic. Dark Passage.
Dark Passage stars Bogart and Bacall, obviously, together again, as the poster indicates. The story goes that Bogart's character is is Vincent Perry. He's a man who's been in jail for a time, accused of having murdered his wife. He claims he's innocent. He escapes from jail, and we follow him as he makes his way back to San Francisco to try and figure out a way to prove his innocence. Along the way, he gets picked up by Lauren Bacall's character, who claims to have been a supporter of his during his trial. She has a past of her own that in which her father was wrongfully accused, in her eyes, of killing somebody, and ended up dying in jail. And so she takes his case kind of to heart in her own right, and sets about trying to help him in any way he can. The problem is that director and writer Delmer Daves continuously sets up characters who want to help Bogart in the most convenient way possible, like the most convenient cab driver in history who happens to have the plastic surgeon that'll work in the middle of the night for $200 to give him a new face, or these convenient characters that work out. Lauren Bacall's character is really, in many ways, a very convenient character. I'm sure the amount of stretch that you have to do to make her character work, Bacall pulls it off because she's very convincing, but you have to really love the two of them. And this is definitely on the weaker side of the Bogart and Bacall team ups, for sure. The thing that most people might know about this movie, and it's been referenced in other films, is the fact that for the first hour, you don't actually see Bogart's face. You hear his voice, but for the full hour, you're for the first, say, 45 minutes, you're actually just hearing his voice from behind the camera. And the camera is essentially a stand-in for Bogart's character. And you see everything from that perspective. Then he has surgery, and you can see him wrapped in bandages, but you still can't see Bogart's face until about an hour in, when they take the bandages off and reveal his new face is Bogart. That's an interesting, filmic choice. It's an interesting choice by a director to do, and it's pulled off in a charming way that has gone down in history and been used to kind of bring Bogart back to life in the 80s. I think it was an episode of Tales from the Crypt. I think it was, but it's been referred to in other ways. I I'm disappointed in this movie just because, again, convenient cab driver. It's just such a weak thing. There's just no way that works. And then the resolution to it all is unearned, and it doesn't really work out. They needed something more effective than what they had in terms of the actual killer and why that actual killer does what they do. So it's definitely a weaker effort, but I totally blame Delmer Daves, the writer and director, and not Bogart and McCall, because they're incredible. I mean, their chemistry is off the charts. They're both just these magnetic, charismatic performers that make this movie a very easy to watch movie. But in the end, it's the most disappointing classic of the Bogart and Bacall team ups.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. It's yeah. If the movie existed today, it would work, because there's tons of convenient movies that Gerard Butler starred in or whatever that people love. Yeah. And this is better than that. But I mean, it's that kind of, it's a very simple, convenient. All the characters are too close to each other, even though there's no reason for them to be. I wasn't, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's the worst movie I've seen this week, which I feel it's weird to say a Chris Rock movie might be better. That's largely due to just the fact that it's more modern and easier for me to get through, I think. But I wasn't really a fan. Yeah.
There's just so much, there's so many poor choices, like what they do with Agnes Moorehead's character. Having why she was in, how did she and Lauren Bacall meet? How did they end up becoming friends? And I mean, because they're on opposite sides of the trial that Bogart was in, and Bacall's character was not related to the trial
at all
in any way. Yeah, she was
just know who she was.
Yeah, she was an observer, and she somehow ended up involved in all the lives of the people surrounding Bogart's character. And that really sounds like a far more interesting movie when you get down to it, is her going to the trial every day and involving herself then in this case, and maybe trying to figure out a way to solve it and save his life from that perspective. They kind of went with the less interesting story.
Well, and the thing that we talked about a lot with our classics, especially the older ones, are how they had to be more creative back, a long time ago to make things work and to make it make sense. And here it's not creativity. It's throwing shit together and hoping it sticks. And basically you're relying on the chemistry of Bogart and Bacall. And that's really all this movie is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. 30 years ago, What About Bob came out.
What About Bob, starring Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss. Murray plays a guy who's seeing a psychiatrist, played by Richard Dreyfuss, and he crosses all the various boundaries there are of the client and patient. He shows up at his home. He calls him all the time. He just generally annoys the hell out of him. And the problem with that is that Richard Dreyfuss isn't likable enough for us to be upset with Bob, and Bill Murray's too annoying for me to care about Bob. So I end up just being seriously annoyed and not caring about either one of these characters. Murray's not particularly funny here. He's a dork. He's an annoying jerk who doesn't realize he's an annoying jerk. He doesn't really say anything funny. Perhaps I'm just looking for that, classic Bill Murray quick change guy, who's always ahead of the game and kind of a Bugs Bunny. And that's not him in this movie. He's playing, and he does deliver the character that they're asking for. It's just not a particularly appealing or funny character. And then you have Dreyfuss, who's just he want to be in this movie less? I mean, he seems like he's just completely over the top and belting everything to the back of the room out of sheer boredom, trying to force himself into having some life and energy in this. And it's really terrible. This is a really bad movie.
Yeah, everybody loves it except for me and
me.
now Sean. Every year since 1991, I've had a teacher. What about Bob? Have you seen this movie? Blah, blah, blah. I don't like. It's. I just don't like this movie for a number of reasons. Even if I'd never seen it, I wouldn't like this movie because of the whole having the name Bob. It already sucks as a name to begin with. Then you gotta have this movie to go with you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like it. And I've never seen Mannequin 2 on the Move.
Mannequin 2 on the Move. This movie is terrible, but it's terrible in a fun sort of way. William Ragsdale takes up the role of that, not the same role, I guess, that it's the same function as the character from the first movie. And Christy Swanson this time is the mannequin, or is she a statue? She's an ancient statue from ancient times who is awakened when she has this magic amulet on, and comes to life inside of a mall and go crazy, and stuff happens, and Terry Kaiser dies falling from a balloon and shattering because he gets turned into a mannequin or statue. It's it's so bad, but it did on the very least, it's bad in that way that is kind of entertaining to make fun of. And I can say that because the guys at How Did This Get Made really did that. They made a very good episode, a very funny episode about about this movie. And I care. That really makes me appreciate this movie so much because they made it so funny. Just thinking about them watching the movie is much better than the movie itself.
Awesome. Okay, that's our show. Next week we've got Army of the Dead. Hopefully it's not as bad as The Match. Amityville Poltergeist, Drunk Bus, is it The Dry? And
yes,
Blast
The Dry.
And Blast Beat. Our classic's going to be White Zombie. And from 1991, probably the most interested I've been in 91 in a while, just to see if these movies hold up. Backdraft, I feel like it won't. Hudson Hawk, I already know sucks.
Yeah.
Thelma and Louise, I'm wondering. That's supposed to be one of the
I got
best.
a good feeling about that one. I've read a lot about that movie, and I feel like it'll hold up.
I'm looking forward to watching it again, though. Then there's Only the Lonely, Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken. Those are two different movies I said poorly together. Sorry. Only the Lonely is one movie, and Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken is the other movie.
And Only the Lonely is John Candy, and the other one is about a horse.
Doesn't matter. I'm watching Backdraft and Thelma and Louise and hoping there.
Yeah.
I mean, Backdraft has to be. Hopefully, it's fun, dumb. I mean, you go, we go. They know it's a bad movie.
Right.
We'll see.
We haven't had much luck with Ron Howard lately, so.
Yeah, that is true. But before we go, I want to tell you to go to patreon.com/CriticsPod, help support the podcast, or go to ihatecritics.net and click on our TeePublic link to get yourself some Patreon or some podcast merch. Before, as I get Flickchart set up, so we're going to go into the spoiler alert for The Killing of Two Lovers. So if you go ahead and turn it off now, if you don't want to know, you haven't seen it already. But 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, turn it off. So the end, the new boyfriend beats the shit out of him, sucker punches him. He drives off. He falls out of his car. She comes running after him. He's firing a gun. Does something happen when he's firing the gun, or Did I miss something there? Or?
He doesn't hit anybody.
Okay.
Anyway, he comes to realizing that he was actually shooting at her and not the boyfriend. She had chased after him in her
Right.
car and caught up with him, and he'd taken a couple shots in her direction, but thankfully he missed her, and she ran over and picked him up and helped him home. And we cut to a scene several weeks or months later, and they're back together, and they're trying to work it out and trying to overcome their problems. But it's not necessarily a happy ending, because they're also kind of back to this sort of mundane routine that they were in
Right.
before, the same thing that had driven them apart before, this mundane existence of buying a washer together and whether or not they want one that hooks up to the internet. These kind of boring questions that married couples have to ask each other, but are not exactly what makes a great life together. And that's what's so impressive about this movie. The title, "The Killing of Two Lovers," isn't an actual murder.
Right.
It's the killing of their love for each other, and for potentially her love of this other man. That's what's being killed here. And that is such a bold idea that to introduce a title that implicates us in a violent ending, and then not deliver that violent ending, is just yet another wonderful trick of this movie.
And that was, I guess, where, to defend my viewership, was where I was like, is this before this movie took place, or is it after? Now what you're saying, it makes sense that it was after. But he did pull a gun on her in bed, and then he shot at her. So, she doesn't necessarily know that.
Yeah, he got away with them not knowing. And that's such a great opening scene again, where he crawls out the window and you think, oh my God, he just murdered two people. What happens now? And that wasn't what happened. And I was like, oh my God, wow, bold choice. Where are we going?
The crazy thing for me is, you're talking about the mundane existence, and after going through all that, because you're living it through with him.
Yeah.
To me, it was just like, and maybe it's just because I'm married, and you put yourself in the scenario, and then I guess when you're married, if you really want it to work, you have to enjoy the mundane shit. And it seemed that was kind of more what I was. I mean, clearly I'm wrong because of the name of the movie. But as a viewer, I was just kind of more enjoying the fact that they were doing the mundane shit, like shopping for a washer and dryer.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost like a letting a load off. But then you're right. If what they're really going for is even more dark. I don't know. It's a fantastic movie. Everybody should go see it.
Yeah.
All right. I feel a little better because I wasn't totally off. All right, let's run the flick shot real quick before we call it.
Make a timestamp here, so if people want to come back and watch and listen and hear flick chart, they can skip the spoiler.
All right, I can put this at the end of flick chart too, or put what we just did at the end of flick chart. Chicken Little, Teen Wolf.
Teen Wolf, Chicken Little's forgettable. At least I remember Teen Wolf.
Yeah. Game of Death, Last Action Hero.
Game of Death, but I don't hate Last Action Hero.
I haven't seen either. Animal House, Aliens.
Two desperately overrated movies. Animal House.
Really? I think.
Yeah.
I really don't like Aliens that much.
I'm just not gonna watch it again, and I'll pass by Animal House and kind of catch a few minutes of that whenever it's on.
Yeah. Ocean's 8, Need for Speed.
Ocean's 8.
Creed. The Wolverine, Secret Window.
Secret Window. Secretly a great movie.
Here's a fun one. Terminator Salvation, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows.
Which one sucks less? Terminator.
I haven't seen either one, so you get to make that call. Team America World Police, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, it's Cuckoo's Nest all the way.
One of the best movies of all time. Sucker Punch, Now You See Me.
Now You See Me. I really like Now You See Me.
I do too. Drive, The Godfather Part 2.
It's Godfather Part 2, but Drive is a great movie.
Yes, completely. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, The Hudsucker Proxy.
Close Encounters. Hudsucker's kind of on the lower end of Coen Brothers movies.
I've never seen it. The Last of the Mohicans, The Bodyguard.
Which one's shorter? I'm probably The Bodyguard. The Last of the Mohicans, just everything that Daniel Day-Lewis does feels like homework.
Yeah, I feel like you're starting to slowly fall. I'm leading off on you a little bit on my hate of Daniel Day-Lewis. You're not hating him, but you're definitely not jumping.
I still love Phantom Thread.
Yeah, and I love the fact that that's not Whitney Houston on the cover. The Rundown, The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Talented Mr. Ripley. I got interviewed by Vocal, the company I write for online, and I got to tell the story about seeing The Talented Mr. Ripley and how it essentially changed my life and changed the way I see movies. So yeah, I'm gonna kind of pick that one when it comes up.
The Cider House Rules, Star Trek 3, Search for Spock.
Star Trek 3, fuck the Cider House Rules so hard.
Time Bandits, 7 pounds.
Time Bandits.
7 pounds. Sam?
I've not seen some. I heard good things about it. It's about sommeliers and wine. I haven't seen it though.
Rocky, Robin Hood.
Rocky. Easy choice.
You don't like middle-aged Robin Hood? Blair Witch Project, Half-Baked.
Blair Witch. I don't hate Half-Baked.
Yeah. Transformers, Dark of the Moon, Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah, it's Inglourious Bastards.
Iron Man.
That's a cartoon.
Weird Science, This Means War.
Weird Science. This Means War should have been so much better than it is.
Yeah, with that cast. Get Them to the Greek, Public Enemies.
I like both of those movies a lot. Obviously, I think that Public Enemies is a better movie, but Get Him to the Greek is the one I'm watching. So I love Get Him to the Greek. That movie makes me laugh.
Yeah, I feel like I like Public Enemies, but it's not good enough. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's overlong a little bit. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Citizen Kane.
It's Kane, but Mr. Smith is also an amazing film.
Yeah. Jupiter Ascending, Shark Tale.
Oh, let's see. I mean, I ironically love laughing at Jupiter Ascending, so I'm going to pick that one because Shark Tale really sucks.
I thought you just for Josh's birthday were going to really say fuck you. I'm taking Shark Tale. A Few Good Men, Super Troopers.
Few Good Men.
We're just talking about it.
That was a great point you made about when we were talking about Those Who Wish Me Dead, and you mentioned if it was only Nicholson or only Cruise. That was a hell of a good point about underlining what I said about Jolie.
Thank you. Wow. I feel like it should be one movie. Blue Velvet and American Tail.
Oh, man. I kind of like American Tail and I don't like Blue Velvet, but at the same time, Blue Velvet isn't a bad movie. It's a very well accomplished for what it is, and I don't remember enough of American Tail, so Blue Velvet.
I mean, I'm in the same boat. It's like American Tail is kind of the cartoon that kind of the first one I remember, and that stupid song that
Somewhere Out There.
I loved forever until I didn't. But then I don't know. I just feel like I have to take Blue Velvet.
We're both underneath the same blue sky.
Lethal Weapon 2, Quiz Show.
Quiz Show for me. I like Lethal Weapon 2, but Quiz Show is an underrated film. I don't think enough people talk about how good it is.
I haven't actually seen it, so I'll let you have it. There's a lot of those late 90 movies that I missed. 50-50 Invitation to the Dance.
I haven't seen Invitation to the Dance.
50-50 Home Alone 3.
50-50.
Ink Awakenings.
I don't know, Ink.
Neither do I.
I don't know that one either.
Neither do I. Insomnia Awakenings.
Pick your Robin Williams. Man.
De Niro or Pacino?
Yeah. I'm gonna go Pacino on this one. Insomnia is a really great movie. I like Awakenings, but I mean Insomnia, like I said, Awakenings is one of the best movies of 90, but Insomnia is one of the best movies of 2002.
I haven't seen it, so I'm just gonna go with it. I mean, I've seen it, but I haven't seen it in a long time. I remember liking it, but I need to revisit it. Cocktail, Alien Resurrection.
Cocktail.
Lautrec?
Lautrec. I have not seen it. Yeah, it's about the artist, I believe. Toulouse-Lautrec.
Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo, Billy Madison.
I actually talk about Sandler in my review of Scavenger, about how his movies, I hate his movies, but he's not actively hateful toward his audience, so he's better than Scavenger. Billy Madison.
It's weird. I mean, there's definitely I don't know if there's an audience for Scavengers, but there's an audience for like bad campy horror movies. Like that's the kind of art they like. And I guess I shouldn't not get it. I mean, I like heavy metal, so I suppose it's similar to that, especially when you get to the more extreme stuff. People just tend to like random things, like that Dark Side of the Ring episode where they did the death matches. I definitely don't ever want to see that, but I just don't get like loving campy horror as like the number one art form of all time movie wise, but that definitely exists, and it's weird for me. But I'm assuming Scavengers doesn't fall anywhere near that even.
No, it doesn't. It's not even a movie.
All right, last ones, and I'll ask my question about The Killing of Two Lovers. Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Expendables.
Raiders.
Yes, this one sucks, so we can move on. All right. Okay. Cool. All right, if anything changes for what we're watching, let me know.
Yeah, you mentioned the classic, right? Is White Zombie?
White Zombie. It's on Amazon for free. It was part of the reason I recommended it.
I like it.
All right.
I've seen The Dry. The Dry is really good. Amityville Poltergeist is unwatchably terrible. It's not as bad as Scavenger because it's just more like super average.
Right. Did you watch Army of the Dead or no?
No. Only went to the theater one time.
I'm just like, I might be done with wrestling after that. Like, why even try? I mean,
wait, which episode was this?
Well, no, I'm talking about the Dark Side of the Ring.
Oh yeah.
With the Miz with the freaking zombie. I mean, hats off to him and the other guy for having to do that. But my God, Damian Priest, that's such a fucking bad idea. I mean,
did you see what Batista said? People were tweeting at Batista. He was he was on a plane at the time, and he gets off the plane and he's on all these mentions from people. He's like, why? He's like responding to people, like telling him how shitty it was. He goes, why are you talking to me? I didn't book that shit.
Chris Jericho said it set wrestling back 30 years.
He was just being bitter because WWE said that about his match on AEW the week before.
Right, where they showed the crash pad.
Yeah.
Which after watching did you watch the Dark Side of the Ring Nick Gage episode?
No.
Oh my God, it's a horror movie.
Really?
he does all these. He's the one who did the David Arquette match.
Yeah, he almost killed David Arquette. Yeah.
And the reason he almost killed David Arquette was an accident because David Arquette said, "Do not cut me, whatever you do." Right out of the gate, all of a sudden he gets a pizza cutter out and he starts cutting them.
Oh God!
And Arquette got mad, and then it turned into a shoot fight, and that's how he accidentally got stuck with the thing. If he had just gone with it, he probably would have been okay. But he actually got kind of pissed off to the point he wasn't going to do the documentary.
Yeah.
There's one tournament of death where he's in the championship match against this guy called Thumbtack Tommy or something like that.
Yeah.
Literally, the first move they throw him through the ropes, and the ropes are all have the fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
On him.
Uh-huh.
He falls through, and one just cuts him really bad. He dies on it. Well, first of all, they're out in the middle of a cornfield because they don't want the authorities to come and get there and break it up. And they do this every year. They still do it to this day. But the first move of the match, they just throw him through the ropes, and he gets cut weird, hits an artery under his arm. And they're carrying him to the back. He's trying to go back out. They're holding him down. They're tight, but they can't get an ambulance in there because they're hiding from the authorities.
Oh,
so they got to bring a helicopter in.
Yeah.
He literally died. He's dead for 7 minutes on the helicopter before they bring him back because he lost so much blood. He robs a bank. I'm sure you've heard that story before. And John Moxley's got the best line because Nick Gage, whenever he comes out, he's got a mask on. He never shows his face. And he's like, "You've robbed a bank with your face right in front of the camera, nothing covering your face. You wear a mask all the time. When you go to rob a bank, you don't." It's a pretty good season so far.
Yeah, I watched some of the Pillman stuff, and that's pretty much it.
Well, it's only been the 2 Pillman episodes in this. But yeah, I don't know. All right. Well, anything else before we go?
Nope, that's all. I'm all good.